Hey guys, you got Crave here with a review of Ghostwire Tokyo. So as with other reviews I do, let's get to the TLDR. It's a stylish and very good looking game with themes that remind you of the Yu Yu Hakusho anime or manga. It's different from your standard first person affair, but it has a fun gameplay loop that can be quite repetitive. Of course, let's tackle it in detail from the usual aspects, which are graphics, story, and gameplay. Yep, the game is a looker. In fact, it was one of the things that really got me interested some months back. The vibrant and creepy mix with the Yusuke Urameshi-like abilities with the Doctor Strange hand vibes, it got me interested. I admit though that the spooky feel did make me think twice as I do stay away from such games. There are scary moments in Ghostwire, but nothing that qualifies as horror like The Evil Within or maybe Bloodborne. It's the main reason why I stay away from games like Dark Souls, but go for other Souls-like which have less of the creepy feel. In any case, I went ahead and purchased Ghostwire and I'm glad I did. Now, for the most part, the vibrant colors and scenes and setting are tempered by the gloomy skyline, the rain weather effect, and being in darkened environments as the game sequence demands. The hostile spirits, or visitors as they are called in the game, vary in design, but there's really not a whole lot to them. Now, the normal enemies can vary in color maybe, but it's more like when you see one, you've seen them all. Some stronger mobs are better, but not by a whole lot. Boss mobs are a whole different story, of course, and I really like the design that went into those types of enemies. The standout factor really from a visual point of view is the first-person element when you are firing off your ethereal attacks paired with the main character or Akito's gestures. I know it's a simple thing, but it's really great to look at. It really reminds me of Yusuke from Yu Yu Hakusho and maybe other caster animations from other games or anime. This is where I wish they did more variations because the graphics are great for the ethereal attacks. Akito has also these things he calls talismans, which helps to vary the gameplay, but their effects are also pretty great to observe. From an audio perspective, I want to say this first. I suggest leaving the Japanese audio on and playing basically with English subs, just to increase the immersion factor. I did the same thing when I played Ghost of Tsushima. For everything else, the auditory experience is pretty good in Ghostwire. The background music is great, but it's really the combat effects and generally the sound effects that are great. I mean, audio cues, which are important in most games, are really on point and add to the spooky effect that Ghostwire is trying to push. Now, visitor or enemy effects can get, like I said, repetitive, just like the lack of variation in design of the normal mobs, but it won't really ruin the whole experience. The plot of Ghostwire is actually very simple, which translates to the short runtime if you run a straight path to the endgame. Now, I clocked in about 19 hours, which others could probably do in about 14 by my estimates. It's actually good that it's not lengthy, but I'll get to that. Now, Tokyo has been, at least the backstory for Ghostwire is that Tokyo has been invaded, quote-unquote invaded, or taken over by spiritual entities, and its residents have all but disappeared due to a strange fog that has swept the city. Now, Akito is practically the only one left because of being taken over by a spirit entity called KK. Now, when I say taken, it's not a possession. So total control really isn't achieved by either party. So it will kind of remind you of the recent Cyberpunk 2077 if you played that game. From there, you venture off to save the souls of the residents of Tokyo, help Akito to save his sister, and work on resolving the overall ghostly concern of the city. The last bit, I won't detail that as I don't know if any of you have watched the lore bits for Ghostwire, so I'd like to avoid spoilers. But if you watch the Yu Yu Hakusho anime, Season 3 and 4 give you a somewhat of a hint as to what the big picture dilemma is in Ghostwire. On that, there's not much else going on, and this is why I think it's good that the main plot doesn't stretch out for too long. There are side stories, but unlike other games, they don't tie in too strongly to the main plot. I mean, they are related on a technical level and somewhat help to understand the lore being built around the main plot, but that's it. There are small tidbits to learn about the residents of the city, but they are not related to the villain or the main character, save for maybe about 3 quests. Some side stuff are interesting, while the others can feel like repetitions of others. The compelling reasons you would do non-main plot items are really just for the rewards, having something to do, or upgrading your gear, or maybe just firing away your ethereal attacks if you really enjoy that mechanic. For the gameplay bits, and just like the rest of Ghostwire, the gameplay is simple and executed well, but I do have some reservations. The good part is that combat is fun, stylish, and easy to grasp. The main attack available to you are Akito or KK's weaving attacks, which can be based on 3 types. That's fire, water, and wind. Fire is the strongest of the 3, but it has the most limited ammunition count. Now, water is the second one, which has a bit more ammo compared to fire, and is great for enemies that can block your weaves or are basically just grouped up right there in front of you. The last one, and the first one that's actually available to you, is the wind ethereal attack, which is really just gives off that Yusuke vibe, except it's green and it doesn't have a spirit ball form. All 3 can be charged up to increase their effect before firing. Now, charging up these attacks is great as the increased effect only uses up 1 count of your ammunition. Now, another attack available to you is your bow, which is quite powerful, but is limited in count just like the others. You can use it for open combat, but it's really more useful in stealth. A charged bow shot either one-shots weaker enemies or deals considerable damage to stronger foes. What would normally take a barrage of wind attacks might just require 2 or 3 bow shots for some open world enemies. What's great is that stealth is simplified in Ghostwire. As long as the detection indicator isn't red, you can keep poking enemies with your bow shots or even your ethereal weave shot. Ammo is also further simplified in the game. You can find a lot of them by smashing containers that have this greenish blue color to them, but there is an RNG element to what you might get. You can get something for wind, you can get something for water, and sometimes you can get something for fire. Now, there are also these red floating containers that can actually explode if you hit them, and they provide you specifically just fire weave ammo. Now, arrows are a bit more sparse, but all over Tokyo there are these shops which sell them in addition to food and talismans. These talismans are also another aspect to Ghostwire in that they add a certain depth to gameplay. These talismans can be purchased off the same shopkeepers that sell food and arrows. Now, these things you carry can help to either stun or expose or help to expose enemy cores in a much faster way, or can even help you hide via a fake bush that you can prop in front of you, or they can help to distract enemies. Now, all these combat-based abilities are great in that they are enhanced further by equipment and by allocating skill points. Now, it's easy to gain ability points or skill points just by beating down visitors, completing quests, turning over souls you absorb via Katashiro. They're all very interesting the first time you encounter them, especially if you're new and have some interest in Japanese folklore. Unfortunately, all these lack depth and can get quite repetitive. I wish combat could have had more depth, like in Elder Scrolls, where you could morph or mix and match abilities. Another way to have treated this is like in Lost Ark, where you could enhance your skills the further you progress in the game. It's not a big deal, but if you played similar games or you are so used to deeper ability or skill system, it might eventually make you think, yeah, I've been there and done that. Now, as I mentioned earlier, visitors or enemies are also lacking in variation, so it somewhat compounds the problem. This is why it's good the main story of Ghostwire isn't that long. You can explore and maybe even do a decent amount of side quests, as they do reward upgrades to your equipment and abilities. You also get nice outfits, or you get currency to help you buy them. You don't have to be a completionist to get a good experience out of Ghostwire. This was my path. Now, my wife, being the completionist she is, will most likely scour the whole map of Tokyo until, well, basically nothing is left. So you do have the option to somewhat tunnel vision the main quest, but I would still advise doing some of the side missions. The repetitive nature isn't bad in my opinion, but I will understand others who might see it more or see more of the negative side to it. And if you do engage in activities outside the main storyline, make sure you do enough to upgrade your ability to be able to traverse Tokyo from rooftops by being able to summon Tengu, at least I think that's what they're called, or these anchors that allow you to pull yourself to certain locations. You kind of feel like Spider-Man in that way. So, Ghostwire Tokyo. It's a pretty good release from the developer Tango Gameworks, but the problems are in its lack of depth and repetitive aspects. Like I said, it's not terrible for as long as you give more emphasis on the main story if you're not the completionist type. I sincerely hope there's a second game to this that maybe explores other cities in Japan, or it could still be Tokyo. I mean, the main storyline, while it does appear to have concluded, could actually open up bigger concerns, as the main antagonist's actions could complicate things for Tokyo. If there is a second game, I really hope that more depth is added and that they maintain the vibrant look of the game. Maybe not escalate the spooky aspect, as I still do want to play it. Anyway, thanks guys. Talk to you soon.